This London derby, which is live on talkSPORT this lunchtime, our game day exclusive. And with us then to look ahead to it, former Chelsea and West Ham defender Scott Minto. Scott, good morning. How are you?
Morning, guys. Yeah, very well, thank you. Can I just add something on to Trev as well, who doesn't miss a thing.
No.
Obviously, I work with him at Sky. A big Forest fan. I wonder if it'd be straight in and chirping around if they, a couple of months ago when they were sort of in and around the relegation zone. No, listen, honestly, Trev's absolutely brilliant at what he does.
He certainly is. And hopefully
Sounds
he'll have
like a stalker to me.
No,
yeah.
Hopefully he'll have his right of reply to what Scott just said as well. Go on then, West Ham against Chelsea.
Your two former clubs, Scott. Now, first of all, I'll start on Chelsea because now that João Felix is back, does you think now this is where Potter's going to get scrutinised more than ever because they've got all these new players in? There's no reason why Chelsea can't score more goals, Scott, because clearly in that department they're falling well short.
Well, they are, mate. But, I mean, what I would say is, first of all, I think the pressure's been on from the moment he's gone in, especially what happened in the summer, even more so with the amount of money that's been spent in January. And yet, £600 million being spent, and Chelsea don't really have an out-and-out striker, or they're kind of... The main out-and-out striker's just been taken off the Champions League list in Aubameyang. So, look, they do have an abundance of talent. And I think it's difficult for Graeme to say, if people was turning around and saying, well, look, there's your players, deal with it, sort it out immediately. It doesn't happen like that. You know that, Cass. So he's got to try and find a way. He quite likes making changes to formations as well as going from game to game, making 3 or 4 changes. In fact, he's made the most since he's gone in to Chelsea in the whole of the Premier League. I do think he needs to try and find a settled side. And I think once he does, then there's every chance Chelsea could kick on. I actually think, if you look at where Chelsea and say Liverpool are they really in with the shout at the top 4? At this moment in time, you'd say no. Which of the two do you feel are capable of going on a run? And I'd have to say that I feel that Chelsea are closer to clicking than Liverpool are. I just think Graeme needs to find, who's going to be that guy to score the goals. You can't rely on one person because I've just said they're not sort of out-and-out strikers there, really. But what you can do is find a blend where the team are playing so well and the goals are shared around. And I do think whatever you say about Chelsea, and have they overpaid on players? Yes, they have. But have they bought quality? Yes, they have.
I mean, Aubameyang's an interesting topic in itself, really, because he comes in under Thomas Tuchel, barely gets any chance to work with him, and Tuchel then loses his job. Potter's come in, and we've not really seen much more of Aubameyang, really. And like you say, he's now not even part of the Champions League squad going forward. Then you've got the likes of Hakim Ziyech, who it was looking like he was off, and then suddenly, no, he's back involved, part of the starting lineup last weekend in the Champions League squad as well. As an outsider looking in, you kind of feel like it just seems a bit odd, some of the decisions that are being made. Now, I know obviously the Ziyech transfer came down to paperwork not being filed at the right time, but for them to bring him back into the fold as quickly as Graham Potter did, as I say, just as an outsider, just seems some of the decisions being made are just a little odd.
Well, it probably does from the outside, and we don't really know what's going on the inside, but I was on the Sunday session last week, and I said that I felt, why is Hakim Ziyech playing for Chelsea when he hasn't really sort of hit it at all and done well for Chelsea, and 3 days after they're about to let him go? For me, that was about Graham Potter bringing someone who could claim to be the most disgruntled player on the planet right now back into the fold and feeling part of it. He clearly is not having Aubameyang for whatever reason, and I wouldn't knock him for that. But Hakim Ziyech clearly, although, as I say, I wouldn't have him in the Chelsea first team myself, I think straight away he said, this is a guy who's completely out of it. I understand why. I'm going to get you back in the side. And that's where Graeme he has to be a little bit ruthless, but he has to be careful with morale. Because you know what it's like, Kaz, there's no point in having, I think, 33 senior pros? So, there's always going to be someone injured and quite a few injured. But even with more subs than ever now, you're still going to get a lot of players who are not even going to make the bench. So I believe he's brought Hakim Ziyech in almost as a let's get you back on board instead of I actually think you are one of my best 11 players that can go out and win the game here. And that's something that Graham Potter has to deal with that most managers don't at the moment.
And Scott, I make you right. I think a lot of people were shocked that he actually played the game. West Ham, because a little bit of a turnaround. You feel like they're going to give Chelsea problems today?
West Ham are always capable of giving any team a problem. You know, they'll lose against teams they shouldn't lose against. And then, you know, they're in this run at the moment of it's Newcastle, Chelsea, Spurs. You know, and you wouldn't be surprised if somehow they got a fantastic draw last week against Newcastle at St James's Park. You know, they could easily get a win here and then draw at Spurs or draw against Chelsea and beat Spurs. And then they'll lose the next few games that they shouldn't lose. They're just a very inconsistent side. But what I would say is I think what you've got with West Ham at the moment is the massive Everton win. I think that was absolutely crucial. And I think David Moyes would have been under a lot of pressure if they'd have lost that game. And then that performance at St James's Park where they conceded a goal in the first minute or two. That was disallowed. And then they went a goal down in the sort of second minute. And then they could have crumbled up there. And they didn't. And they came back into it. And they deserved the draw. It wasn't just a good result. It was a really good performance. So I get the feeling that West Ham are now turning it round. And the last thing I want, you know, I was part of the West Ham squad 20 years ago where, you know, we went down with a squad that was told was too good to go down. But I do believe that now this is a time where West Ham can get themselves back out of it. I think today's going to be a very difficult game for them. And I think today ultimately depends on whether Chelsea can click, because I do feel that Chelsea have the quality. And if they do click, they can beat any side in the world. So West Ham at home, the atmosphere is going to be amazing. I'm going to be there. I'm really looking forward to it. But I think ultimately who's going to win this game will depend on whether Chelsea can really, you know, get everybody together and scoring goals.
Sounds like it'll be a draw then.
Cheers, Scott.
Scott, great to have you with us. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Shut up.